I'll talk about one story, which is a story called Black-Eyed Women in The Refugees. It's the opening story. That story was the first story I wrote in the collection, and it was the last story I revised in the collection. So it was with me for 17 years. And it taught me everything I knew about writing. And the most important thing it taught me was, don't give up. Don't give up. Because I didn't give up writing that story, I became a writer. But the other thing it taught me was that what's important oftentimes is what's not in the story, as much as what's in the story. So I had to write 50 drafts in order to figure out what didn't belong in the story. And I had to write 50 drafts to find the ghost in the story. And that this ghost had to return to haunt our narrator and her mother in the story. I realized that that ghost had always been there in the story. I just didn't know it. I had to write 50 drafts to find what was haunting these characters. And once I understood what was haunting these characters, then the entire story became clear to me.
And I think the idea of backstory as an explanation for how characters are was something that I was very familiar with, but I wanted to kind of see if you could become close to a character in a different way. So if you could become close to a character without knowing very, very basic things about her, about not exactly perhaps how old she is, you don't know her name, there are big gaps, but if you could be inside her head, if that could be a kind of intimacy that could work within the novel, was something that I wanted to see if I could do.
I think we can say yes.
If you make it harder to vote in an even place, you also increase the number of ways that any given citizen can be prosecuted for voting in the wrong way. Sending a woman to prison for accidentally going out to vote, and it destroys a family, it destroys a community. And so we should be thinking about laws and their absolute effects on human lives. Each time one of these laws gets passed, and each time then it gets a little harder to vote, people have to go and expend a little more energy. So you can create a rhetorical scenario with no end where the only thing you can do is to ratchet up the difficulty of the ballot. And I think that's what's happening now in America. That's also happening in a situation where the Supreme Court is essentially waiting on voting rights cases it can take and having the net effect of every single decision weakening the Voting Rights Act.